I'm going to start. Highlights of today were a great conversation with my daughter, Rachel. I didn't get a chance to talk to her over the weekend, and she has the week off because this is I don't know. I'm going to start. Highlights of today were a great conversation with my daughter, Rachel. Oh yeah, that was like a back channel coming in, sound from the sound from the YouTube channel, very distracting. But anyway, she was in really chipper spirits, and even though she's not sleeping, and she has a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and her life is complicated. Spring has sprung, and I feel her energy and charm. And I was a little worried about her back in the winter when it was hard and she wanted to leave her job, and she still wants to leave her job, and she needs to get out of that middle school and go someplace else. But for a while, it seemed like every week she was complaining to me, and today she did no complaining.
Where does she live?
She lives in Philadelphia. She works at the Esperanza Middle School, and she didn't do any complaining today. That was my highlight. Okay, who's next? One highlight just from today, the last 24 hours.
Well, I have one. I did a training today. We're doing partnerships with public school systems all over Brazil. And so we're divvying up the states. And I took a state in the northeast of Brazil called Ceará. And I did a training today for about 170 school principals and coordinators, and including like country schools, really remote schools, and schools for indigenous populations. And it was really, really amazing. The exchange, it was really amazing. I was so grateful for that. It was beautiful.
Oh, what fun. How wonderful. Who's next?
I can share that I was at my laptop for a few minutes and happened to see we have like instant messaging in the school, and a message popped up from one of the science teachers. And I haven't worked with science at all this year. And it was like, hey, Earth Day is April 22nd. Do you want to do something with the kids? We'll just give you all the 6th graders and do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay, awesome. So that was a nice surprise.
Woo! And is that enough notice?
Oh, I'll make it enough notice. I'll put something together. I have some ideas, but I'll make it work.
Oh, that's wonderful. Isn't that great? Right out of the blue. He's ready to collaborate. So you're ready to collaborate. Love it. That's great. Who's next?
I can hop in.
Yeah.
So today, at the end of the day, my podcast kids are all freshmen, and they used to be all seniors, and my seniors only have 23 days left of school. And they're really nervous about passing the podcast off to some freshmen. But my freshmen rocked it today. They did an amazing job. And I am super confident that this new group of kids will continue capsized on and on and on. So I'm so happy.
Even though they're young, they are ambitious. And you can see that they're going to do just fine.
Yeah. And I'm so proud of my seniors, especially one of them who's having a really hard time letting go of everything and moving on. He doesn't want to graduate, but he's doing such a great job with these freshmen and teaching them the ropes and, really sitting back and letting them fly. And I can see how hard it is for him, but I'm so proud of him. I tell him that constantly. And then I start getting all misty eyed. Like, I can't talk about you graduated.
Right. He has such a strong feeling of ownership. Right? He feels like this is a humongous part of his identity. Wow.
Yeah. We can't put the new posters up until he's gone, he said, because we're doing all new posters with the new hosts and stuff. So
what a good problem to have.
Absolutely.
He's so invested that he's heartbroken to leave.
Yeah.
You're lucky. Diane, what was one wonderful thing that happened to you today?
Well, we're in the last 4 days before spring break, so everything at school has just been feeling really upbeat the past few days. We just had a really great open mic poetry slam. The kids are getting really excited for prom, which they didn't get one last year. So it's been 2 years since they've had prom, and they're talking about their dresses and who they're going to ask. And my seniors are starting to decide what colleges that they're going to go to. One of them just decided to go to Carnegie Mellon. So just a lot of really great things happening at school.
Wow.
I'm so excited for them. This is the first time I've taught seniors, so I'm really kind of starting to experience like all the happy, fun things that happen in the last quarter senior year.
It's true. And some of those things are the things they remember most for their whole life.
Yeah.
Right. So when they think back to high school, it will be those things that they remember.
Definitely.
Oh, beautiful. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, we are steaming to the finish line with this course. And you could see from the outline, my plans for tonight are really to give us some time to look backward and some time to look forward. And that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Because it's been, well, think about it. Doesn't it seem like a million years ago when we had our Signal chat? A million years ago. It was a million years ago. So much has happened since then. And so I am just putting the finishing touches on my feedback. I have feedback for you in an email coming on your digital storytelling. Let's talk a little bit about what did you like and dislike about your Leap 3 adventure. Not everybody reacts the same way to Leap 3. It's not, everybody has a different learning curve and a different learning path. As you reflect back now to that experience, what were the aspects of the learning experience that you liked, and what was the other stuff?
I'm happy to start. One of the things I really loved was Lambert's digital storytelling cookbook. I think I fell in love with that. And I've actually since grabbed it and incorporated it into, from our seniors, our ELA department, 2 of the teachers are collaborating with myself as well to work on their passion project. And they can then take it, and they were going to have them do a paper. And I said, well, why don't we open it up to have them do multimedia as a tool? So they have to still write the paper, but they can do a vlog, they can do screencast, they can do a whole bunch of things, like a TED Talk, a whole bunch of things. And I really enjoyed being able to take those aspects and teach them to somebody else after learning about them. So that was one of my favorite things. The other favorite thing that I really loved was the last year and a half has been a nightmare with my daughter, going through all of her food allergies, plus being diagnosed with celiac disease, which is not a food allergy. I want everyone to know that. But I found it really cathartic to do this. And I think I needed to. And I'm so glad I had the opportunity, because I found like a deep peace afterwards. And it's helped me. And because it's helped me, it's helped her, which is even more important. And I'm really grateful that I did that. And I shared it with my parents, and my husband, and my daughter, and that's about it so far. And I'll share it with my in-laws and stuff, but it's just nice to have it as a tool to hold on to and to go back, and it almost validated my feelings, even though I know my feelings were valid, but it was nice to have that validation, to see something physical from it. My part was my frustration with like digital tools. So I was thinking, and I wrote this in my reflection, I was going to do Adobe Create, but I didn't like how it was working because I'm so used to WeVideo, and this became such a thing that I wanted to really pour my heart and soul into. I just wanted the tool to be easy, so the rest of the work was so hard. But then I got really frustrated too, because with WeVideo, my licensed version is through my school, and I'm not really supposed to do outside stuff on it, and so that was a pain. So I asked the IT director. He's like, "Yeah, that's fine." But like that's the stuff that really aggravates me. Like why do I have to pay for WeVideo for the license? I don't want the watermark on it. It's just stuff like that drives me up the wall, and just the access to the digital tools. And I feel like I know about so many of them because of what I do, that I can only imagine the frustration on other people's ends who aren't in it all the time. So I think that was my biggest part.
Wow. I really appreciate your observation about the cathartic feeling when you finish. That's a really beautiful way. The way you describe that is so, it feels like, yeah, there is something really powerful about that. A sense of peace. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Who's next? What were your highlights and lowlights? What'd you like and dislike about that Leap 3 storytelling? I'm trying to harvest ideas about how I can make that assignment better for the next time. Of course, that's what I want to really know, but
I'd like to go next because I agree a lot with what Carrie said. And I feel like my experience was kind of similar to hers in a lot of ways, where she mentioned that she got to use the digital cookbook and teach other people at her school about how to do this process. I kind of had a similar experience with my son, who was watching me create mine and then decided he wanted to create one of his own. And so he went through the whole same process that I did and made his own video, which I was just so amazed by. He's 9. So that was definitely my favorite part of it. And then I kind of just agree a lot with what Carrie said about the blah being just the use of the digital tools. And it really made me reflect on my students and how they have such limited access to things. Like we, at my school, we do have some paid subscriptions to some things that we have access to that they do not have access to. And just how I wish that they had more opportunities to do more digital content creation and had the tools and resources to do so, and they don't.
yeah. Yeah, that weird way in which the gap seems to be getting actually even wider.
Yeah.
Right? It's something wrong with it, right? Why can't we narrow that gap?
Right.
I was going to mention that. I was looking at the report of the work produced by the D School, Stanford's D School K-12 lab. And they keep working on these different challenges, and they were looking at future trends. And one of them is this: with more and more access to information comes an ever greater digital divide. And I'm very, very aware. I'm glad Carrie brought that up, because when we think about equity, even for me, living in a different country where the currency is devalued, it's really not realistic to expect that my teachers should have access to any of this stuff. They simply can't. Plus, the subscriptions are in U.S. currency, and they're really not affordable to anybody here. So it's really complicated. So I think that's an issue we're going to have to deal with very soon. And of course, there's like free, tools that we can explore, but the paid stuff is so damn seductive and so plug and play and so easy to.
And then sometimes the free stuff has limitations too. So you won't be able to record audio and things like that on some of the free versions of things.
Yeah.
And you don't find out what the limitations are of the free
until you try.
You're already halfway into it and have invested all this time.
Right.
I was that happened to me actually, Renee. I was kind of halfway into it when I realized, there was something with audio I couldn't do. And then I was very sneaky, because I ended up like cooking up this partnership between my project, my work, and Genially. We're going to do some things together. And that's how I circumvented that.
The Genially platform is absolutely awesome. Do you want to tell us about how that relationship developed and what you like about that tool and what you learned by using that tool?
Well, that was my absolute favorite project, obviously, because it's what I love to do. It's what I've done professionally for a long time, and why I don't get to do that anymore, craft stories. And it's my passion. So I really welcome the opportunity to do that. But because of that, perhaps I got too much into it. I ended up designing something for myself that was kind of like, whoa, complicated, so many images and so much time. But it was also very cathartic, because I was dealing with stuff that was deeply personal, and I was very moved by what was going on with the war and memories of my family going through the war and all of that, and refugee violence, and I kind of spat it out in like no time. So it was very intense process. And I think that the nice part for me, other than getting to do something that I really love, and like Carrie, just having them there, I feel like it's such a tribute to my family's history and putting these things together. I really love what she said. It's something to have and to hold on to. So I'm really glad we got to do this. And then I gave myself the challenge of keeping it, within the tool, because I kind of wanted to replicate a school situation, a classroom situation, and see what could be done. So at times it was very frustrating and very hard because, you place a bit of audio there, but there's no counter and you can't edit it in the application and all of that. And I kept saying, no, I'm not going to go outside of Genially for video, audio, or anything else, because I want to see how much of this experience could really be replicated in a sort of, medium technology fluency situation. So, and my complaint is really about the equity, and plus how difficult I made it for myself, because, but then Teresa showed me a piece she did for work, which is like 10 times more ambitious. It's also a Holocaust remembrance thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm not the only crazy one here.
Well, that took 12 weeks to do. So that's different.
So
yeah, that's a good point versus like a month or 3 weeks. Yeah. I'm turning off my phone here. So reflecting back on your Leap 3 storytelling, what did you like and dislike about the activity?
Well, for me, it's my turn, I guess, right? It's not a secret because I've shared this in the different things. It's like, I'm not as comfortable sharing things about myself, but I'm happy to share something about anything else. But for me, thinking about like, what is one thematic or unified story to tell, I really had a difficult time figuring out what that was. So I tried to start with the script, but I didn't know where to start. So I had to go in the reverse, because that digital storytelling cookbook says, write your script like you're talking to a friend. But I had to go back and look at all of the different pictures and videos that I've taken over the years to figure out, well, what is the story really like? How did I actually get into this? Because people ask me like, how'd you start fostering? And I'm like, honestly, I have no idea. It's just like the dog showed up. That's kind of how it feels. But going back and looking at the pictures, I was able to kind of piece it together and think of how one thing led to another and another. And once I figured out that story, then it was easy. It didn't take as long as I thought. It took more time to go and find all the images and put them in some kind of cohesive structure for me to actually even look at.
So that was the deepening and refreshing of your memory. That process of walking through those was actually what then helped you sort of construct and remember. Because like you said, it felt like, so this has always been part of my life. Right? How beautiful. Isn't that interesting that the process of image using and thinking about images and reflecting on images can actually like increase our awareness of, our own lived experience? It's amazing. It's amazing how that happens. So
can I say something though, just in answer to Teresa? I'm glad that she put aside the digital, the cookbook. I actually started reading that and I did not like it very much, I have to say, because I think that that's one way of doing it, but I find it kind of constraining, because it kind of says, do this and do that. And there's so many other ways to arrive at what is a story that's going to speak to you. And in your own book, there's something about immersing yourself in stuff and then letting it sit there to see what happens. And that may work better for some people. So I wasn't too much of a fan of the cookbook just because it presents it as the one way of doing things. So.
Mariana, it's so interesting that you say that, because now it's been 10 years I've been working with Julie Quiro, right? 10 years, right? And I kind of you might have noticed about this, but I'm sort of the anti-scaffolding person. I don't need a lot of scaffolding. I can handle ambiguity. Lack of structure never bothered me a bit. Right?
Yeah.
But I've learned that not everybody, not that I can't make that assumption about everybody in my orbit, right? And so it's true that people have different ways of seeing value in suggestions for a linear scaffold or a conceptual scaffold or no scaffold, right? And some of that is based on temperament and some of that's based on learning, but yeah. So if I were going to do the digital storytelling activity next year, how could I make it better?
Well, I had a question.
I want you to give me some advice.
I had a question. So going back to the whole thing with the digital access and the frustration, during this project, I thought to myself, doesn't URI have any licenses that we can use? Like, shouldn't they have like access to WeVideo that, since I'm paying to go here, I should have access to? So I think maybe that would be like one of my big questions is, well, how come we're not accessing any of the digital tools that are available through?
Yeah, great point. And WeVideo would have been an easy one to extend the license. We had it for the Summer Institute last year. We just didn't extend it. So, but you're right. Good point. And we have Adobe Creative Cloud Express licenses through URI, but I never thought to tell you that. But I could do that. I could fix that for next year. What else?
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
I think that a big part of storytelling is story finding. And maybe we could spend a little bit more time on that, or there could be, a few exercises for that.
Yeah.
Because I find that especially if people are not very experienced, I haven't done a lot of this before, there's this vast universe of like personal stories. And even if you zero in on the theme, say dogs, fostering dogs, I mean, this is huge. And so you have to find the story within the story that you want to tell.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always say that's a big part of it. And maybe there's a way to, I don't know, ignite that a little better, inspire, or do some exercises even, or,
Yeah. Some kind of brainstorming place that was collaborative and playful and fun, where you came up with 5 or 6 ideas.
And framing the larger topic so that you find an angle or something, or a storyline or something you want to tell,
Great suggestion. Thank you so much. What else? I want to improve this assignment. How do I do it?
I just want to say I agree with Mariana on that. I think that a lot of times with my kids, we go back to the stuff from the Right Question Institute that we learned through the Summer Institute. And that just seems so focused on like actual research. It's hard to take that kind of scaffolding, and like my kids need scaffolding because otherwise they just sit there and they have no idea. They need to be told how to start thinking before they can think, just go off. And maybe that's just my kids, but I think to find a way to really help them understand, like Mariana's saying, that how to find the story within a story, that would be huge. So I thumbs up that with what she said too.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. Any other last points here?
Oh, just to touch on that, in that, like a story could be like, it doesn't have to be necessarily like epic. Like if you don't feel like you've had anything really incredible happen in your life to share, that's okay. It could be as like when you made cookies with your grandmother. I mean, whatever it might be, so somehow allowing the percolation of the ideas to come up, and whether it's through an activity or as well as looking at different types of examples, because when you're telling a story, it's in a narrative format, but what could that look like?
I was going to say the same thing. I use mentor texts with my students. So I tell them I'm never going to ask them to write anything until we've looked at examples of that type of writing before. So when we do narrative, I try to pick some narratives that have maybe a similar theme or a similar told, and then we'll analyze different bits of it, talk about what was good, what could have been stronger, and then I still leave it open to them what they want to write about. But if they're having a hard time coming up with something to write about, then they can pick a similar theme that we've already read about. So say family or relationships and things like that.
Nice. You're building that bridge. I love that. That bridge is super important. So I kind of want to build a bridge in a way too, as we do one more activity to sort of bridge to the past before we turn to talk about the future. I'm going to put you in groups with a partner. We had our synthesis way back on February 20th to 28th. And in the last 5 weeks, we've talked about representation, agency, create to learn as a pedagogy, creativity and where it comes from and what it is, and copyright and remix. I'm going to ask you to work with a partner in a small group discussion. And between the two of you, I just want you to see, what do you remember 5 weeks ago? My God, it was just 5 weeks ago, but it was a million years ago, 5 weeks ago. What do you remember as you think back on the last 5 weeks? You'll remember a little bit, she'll remember a little bit, you'll remember a little bit, maybe you'll pull open the path and remind yourself, and we'll take about 7 minutes to do that. And then we'll come back and we'll see what was the sticky part of the last 5 weeks. Give me a thumbs up if you understand this task. You've got 7 minutes to brainstorm. What was the sticky, memorable part of the last 5 weeks? The breakout rooms are open. We'll see you back here in the main room in 7 minutes. Have fun with this. Turn on your microphone. Okay, you're back. All right. So a couple of we only have about 4 or 5 minutes to do a kind of synthesis of kind of the most interesting ideas that came up in your small group. What'd you talk about? And what was one thing you want to for sure remember? It's almost like we're making a video for we've got 4 of you here, but we have 4 colleagues who are going to have to watch this on YouTube, for God's sakes. Let's give them a little summary. What do you want them to know?
Well, we talked about a couple of things. One of them is how much there was to unpack in each week, and the feeling that there was so much there that we haven't, there's so much depth to these articles and samples of things that we haven't even begun to uncover yet. So I'm glad it stays there and we can go back to it at some point. And then how these topics connected to each other. And then, for example, one thread that we found that's it's been happening along the past couple of weeks is the idea of how the design of technology itself shapes the creative experience that you can have. And that was, I think that was mentioned in the article about agency, how the social media platform constraints were actually shaping the interactions and what kids could create. And this pops up again in the remix culture. And then just today, I just tweeted something about the design of the undo button on Twitter that's become like a major issue. I tweeted that just before I came into this meeting. So yeah, the design of these platforms is really something that we have to look at.
Yeah, it absolutely goes back to Marshall McLuhan's idea. We shape our tools, and thereafter our tools shape us. These are not neutral things. They all have biases built in that shape then our creativity. What a cool thread that winds through the last 5 weeks. Thanks for sharing. What else?
I'll be right back. Somebody's at my door. I'll be right back.
No worries.
Okay, well, I'll share then for Carrie and I. We talked about how the big takeaway was that the whole create to learn process, especially working as librarians, we work a lot with students in different capacities using technology and having them create different types of projects. Usually it's product oriented, and we're collaborating with teachers. So we've gotten a chance to do that on a regular basis, but we don't get the opportunity to be the creator and to take the role of a digital author from different perspectives. And so a big takeaway for both of us was that added just this whole different layer of experience and understanding of the process. And moving forward, thinking about how we can try to replicate that, whether we make examples or work through the process, they always say when you're doing project or problem-based learning or passion projects, you should do one along with the kids. And then it never really happens because it's just so challenging time-wise and all that. But to actually maybe do it the next time around, and then also thinking how to encourage the teachers that we work with to go through the same experience. Because I keep thinking about the QFT. I've used that so many times in different ways and try to encourage teachers to use it. But until they actually go through and use it once, even if it's something simple like your school mission statement, and they use it, and it's like, you can see their mind getting blown, if they don't say it. And then they're like, okay, how can I use this? So it's kind of the same concept, trying to convince people about the agency of the authorship in the creative process itself and where to go with that kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It turns out that the concepts of thinking about the social responsibilities of representing yourself and other people online and stereotypes and biases, it turns out that stuff becomes super relevant when you're in the creative process. Like the topic of remix, it's all copyright is all theoretical until there's something you want to use, right? And you really, really need to use it. And then it becomes super, super relevant. And so in some ways, when these concepts get embedded in a create to learn journey, the ideas, the big theory ideas become much more tangible. They become much more authentic. And in a way, you can kind of then draw those threads of connection, right? Between why representation matters, why agency matters, why remix matters. And now as we steam to the conclusion and you're getting this chance to do your final project, in some ways you'll bring into that some of the threads that were most meaningful to you and some of the things that are kind of in a way defining your expertise. Because I really do want you to think about, just because you know this is a leadership program, right? You know that you are leaders in digital literacy. The project that you do for your final project does not have to be a great big thing or fully cooked. It can be one step in your journey, right? But isn't it cool that you get the option to create what you need to create for that, right? You get to build what feels right to you to want to build, but you're defining the audience, the purpose, you're defining the value of this project. And I can see from the scope of work documents that you've already put a toe in there, right? And some of you have got fully fleshed out details, got the project like already well in mind. And some of you are still at the brainstorming stage. So why don't we just talk a little bit about possibilities? What's the best and highest possibility? What's the value? I really kind of want to invite you to make your choices about what you do for this project based on how is it going to be valuable to your career as a leader in digital literacy. So see if we can answer that question. What are you thinking about doing for your final project, and how can it have value to you as a leader in digital literacy? Don't all shout at once. Thank you.
I could start. Sorry, I was just yelling at my dog. I'm sorry I had to leave. My neighbor came over with Easter stuff for my daughter and lemon bars and all that. So I think for me, I'm focusing on putting together the help desk. This is a long time goal, something that I wanted to start when I was hired 3 years ago. And coincidentally, it aligned to what my district wanted. So that was a bonus that we were all on the same page for the most part. Then with COVID and everything, obviously it never couldn't happen. So now this is the year that we really started to think about it. My district is writing a 5-year rewriting our technology plan for the new 5-year plan. It's one of our, under our strategic objectives, it's one of our tasks. And it was something that people didn't really plan on happening for at least another year. But I don't see why not now? Why not now? I mean, so I started putting together the proposal. I actually already turned that into my admin because I want to push it because there's opportunities over the summer that I can reach out to specific students who might be interested because they could come in and do summer work with our IT team to get a head start. But I want it laid out so when school starts, I'm not running behind like the 8 ball trying to catch up. So that's why I think it's going to be great. It'll take the pressure off our IT team because some of the stuff is super simple. It takes the pressure off what we call the ladies at the front desk at the kiosk because they're always getting kids coming in with issues with Chromebooks. Our teaching and learning site that our wonderful assistant superintendent has best intentions for to put out has some good content on it because he's gotten it mainly from the librarians, but some of the teachers as well. But he's done a great job with it, but the interface just isn't something that the staff, at least in the high school, finds user-friendly. So maybe rethinking that so it lines up with what the students would be producing for the help desk. And that's where my biggest problem is right now. I can't decide on the format. We use Concrete 5 for our web platform. Nobody likes it. Hopefully it will go away sooner than later, but I don't think we're going to be going to Google Sites. Should I do that? I started something in Book Creator. That's not really working for me. I don't feel like I want to do it on a Wakelet. Like, I'm just trying to figure out the platform. I think it's going to end up being Google Sites just because it'll be more versatile. Or maybe like Blogger. I don't know. So that's my April vacation decision to make. And then I'm going to really work next week on hashing that part of it out.
And so the users of this thing, whatever it's going to be, is mostly going to be the high school students themselves, right?
Correct. And then hopefully teachers as well. So hopefully there'll be a ripple effect, like a stone in a pond, because the kids will have the immediate use of the help desk for getting their Chromebooks fixed or password issues, or, the ever present, I can't turn my Chromebook on, and it's because you keep shutting it with the Chromebook being open and then it just dies. But to help them through all that, and then hopefully getting the teachers into the buy-in of learning about new digital tools and how maybe it helps us in the high school. It could also help the middle school, or, if in the elementary school, in one elementary school in the district, it would help one of the other ones. We have 4. So just kind of like a
model that may be exportable all the way across. Yeah. And I can really see a good concrete use for the Ignite video too, right? Because that is the story of why it matters, right? That's the persuasive, get on the train that's going forward. So I see that. I think struggling with the platform is really good, and maybe asking the kids.
Yeah, that's a good idea too. Yeah, I'll definitely ask them. Simpler. I don't know if they all know like what's out there. That's the thing,
that's
though.
A good point. You're right.
Snapchat is what I'm going to get.
I was going to make a suggestion. Carrie, take a look at Notion. I just started using that recently just for organizing my life and my productivity, but it's such a wonderful, simple.
I like Notion.
For creating a wiki.
Yeah.
It's the most perfect place I've ever seen for creating a wiki. And you can embed videos, and you can put embed databases.
Yeah, you can have a team. You can have internal conversations. I used to run this class on Notion years back in the day. Notion is a cool one. Notion or Slack.
Okay, I'll definitely check those out.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so there you go. So we're talking about what's the value of this project that you are imagining. It's just an idea right now, but I want to know, how does it have value to developing your expertise? You're as a leader in digital literacy. How does this project going to help you as a leader in digital literacy? Who's next?
I can go next. So you all know that I'm taking this class as an elective, and I'm getting my master's in teaching English as a second language. So I decided to incorporate those two things together, and I'm working on creating some curriculum that is designed for English language learners on how to use different types of digital literacy. So I'm starting with kind of what we did for Leap 3 and creating that into a lesson plan that English language learners can use with their teachers.
So here you will be developing this expertise on using digital literacy pedagogies and create to learn pedagogies in the context of second language learning. That's exciting. There's not too many people who have that little corner of expertise, but you will when this is done. Thanks a lot, Teresa, what about you? How do you think your project's going to help build your identity as a leader in digital literacy?
I'm having a little bit of an identity crisis. I think that's because I may have shared, and then Carrie and I were just talking, things start to mush together when you go to a summer institute and then you take one class and then another. It's like, which one did it come from? But
right.
Within the next 2 years, I'm actually working on and probably transitioning into being an instructional designer. So it's like, well, then if I am a leader in digital literacy, do I do something with what I'm doing now as a school librarian, or do I do something that's more in that realm, or I think I know I have to work for 2 more years, but I don't want to continue being a librarian per se. I might go into instructional technology. So what could I do there? So those kind of where my ideas are coming from, and they're kind of all over the place. So one is possibly thinking about deconstructing digital and media literacy in ways that are like, what is a structure or a technique or an approach or a strategy that teachers can use regardless of their content area to plug in media literacy or digital literacy in some way. Like, once again, I'm going to go back to the QFT, like that can be used with anything, right? Any content area. So what are some media literacy or digital literacy elements that could be layered over when a teacher is going to teach anything, but build that in? So that's just something I've been thinking about for a while, but there could maybe only think of 3 as well as whatever's out there. There's another one is continuing working on developing the online reading academy, which is an online course that I want to build based on what we learned in Julie's class and in the Summer Institute, and then add what we've learned here and continue to build that out, because that is really a course with different modules that I want to have exist, and it would be part of my portfolio as a designer. So there's that. And there's also like my own personal ideas that maybe it would be nice to actually do something just for me, and that would be some podcasting. And there's some ideas for podcasts, which I'm like, oh gosh, I don't even know if these make any sense or if anybody even want to listen to them. So that's kind of where I am. And so the document I put in, that working document, is just links to potential ideas. And I don't know, I just have to kind of percolate a little bit, open to feedback. Anyone wants to look at it and tell me, oh, no, yeah, that one, do that one, because I'm totally kind of at that point. But yeah, just a little all over the place.
Isn't it a wonderful thing to have too many ideas? Yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I would say wonderful, but definitely normal for me.
Right. So this goes back to that story finding thing. How does it find you? And especially given the deadline, right? You think between now and May 9th, that is literally 1 month from today. You have 4 weeks remaining. So it has to be a pretty small project that you can do well, right? So pretty small, but also like a place of passion. And I like the way you're thinking about recognizing that you're in this place of transition, but really you have like a little bit of a longer arc there. So that's kind of cool. Almost any of those projects you imagine could be perfect. And the question is, what does it take to make the commitment to say, I'll jump into this one? Like, that's the place of like figuring that out. Truthfully, I think a dartboard. I always, when I'm struggling with too many ideas, I throw something at the wall or down the stairs. I say, okay, I've got idea A, B, C, and at the bottom of the stairs, if it lands on the bottom step A, on the second to bottom step B, on the third to bottom step C. Sometimes fate does wonderful things that way for me. So just saying. Mariana, what's the best and highest possible value that this project that you're doing could have for your career as a leader in digital literacy?
Mine is not so much an idea as it is an obsession. And it's interesting because I think that when you switch careers and you switch fields, it's an interesting vantage position because it lets you look at things in a different way than people who are in that field are accustomed to looking at. And so when I want to riff on something that Teresa said about, teachers need the space to get their hands dirty and work with things and try the things that they're going to propose for their kids. I get very frustrated when I see teachers delegating media creation projects to IT specialists or media lab technicians as if it's about the tools and not about the story. And so I think that the value is, like you said, doing something that only I could, in my particular combination of experiences, could have cooked up, which is, how do we look at this from an art direction point of view? How do we create stories? How do we bring the editorial design experience to the education context? And how do we help teachers structure storytelling projects with kids? So it's about the story. So it's about giving shape to the story. So it's about visual storytelling, and it's not about the tools, you know? So, and that's what I want to do. And I've been doing workshops around that topic for a while. And I want to sort of get that information out there. Now I think I've worked on it enough that it's kind of structured and I have clear steps. So it's going to be an ebook.
Awesome. It's going to be an ebook, and you will design it with your brilliant creative design skills that for you are like breathing, right? But really will bring it, like you said, together in a way that's something only you could do.
My particular brand of freakishness is that I write in the layout. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, so I think that's in a way a very good model to you find your place of passion because it is something that only you could do. And maybe that will inspire you all because you all are on this journey. Now, just want to remind you, because we're coming to the end of our time here, but I do have this wonderful tool. I just love this tool, and none of you have been really taking advantage of my office hours, but you might as you start to think closely, because I am good with brainstorming. And so I'm going to put into the chat my Calendly right there. Although, you know, I might make your problem even bigger, right? That's the danger of talking to me, right? I might make your problem bigger, harder, and more challenging. That might not be what you want right now. However you work best, schedule a meeting with me if you want to chat and brainstorm as you start to figure out your project, work on your own, work with each other. And obviously we're going to, we're kind of winding down the sort of, this is the last week that there's like reading and content for the class, because now we're moving into the production mode ourselves. So you won't see that next week's path will not have a whole lot of readings and things to do because you're working on your project. It's the 10 hours a week you're spending for the next 4 weeks, right? So, but we probably do at least one more check-in as we get close to the finish line, because remember, you have to do your final paper project. You have to post that to your Medium page, and you also have to do that Ignite video. So as it gets closer to the finish line, we'll probably have another either Signal meeting or Zoom meeting just to make sure you're moving to that stage of completion and can have something that you're going to be really proud of and that we'll be able to show off and feature at the Summer Institute 2022 in Chicago and online. So I'll hang on the call here in case you guys want to have a private conversation with me. Otherwise, let's wave goodbye. Thank you so much for being part of it tonight. I really appreciate it. And those of you who are watching on YouTube, I love you too. Bye.
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 Bye. Thank you.
Bye.